we now know what brings you and your dad together, right? But
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you. So, is there any particular thing that you and your dad see differently?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I think he should, because I think to a large extent, um, you know, I think in terms of our goals and what we want to see for humanity, for our families and humanity and our people in our communities and like generally, we share the same goals and, fundamental principles. We want everyone to have equal access to
Mhm.
opportunities. We want everyone to be able to become better. Um, you know, we want the same thing. And even in faith, because, he and my mom brought us up in the Christian faith. Um, and I remember I kind of roamed churches a little bit, and he didn't like that. He didn't like that. So at the end of the day, I think that maybe, but in terms of like the ultimate goals, pretty much shared. But I'll let you
Okay.
respond.
Actually, we don't have that kind of differences. We don't argue over what you want to do. So let me leave them. Let them chart their own course. Because when I was growing up, my parents didn't insist be this, be that. I remember in science school, my father suggested if I can be an accountant because he saw I was good at mathematics. And I felt that mathematics doesn't make you a good accountant, the fact
Mhm.
that I'm good at mathematics doesn't mean I must become um, an accountant because of my being good in mathematics. But they left me to chart my own course. So why don't I also do that with my children? Allow them the freedom, but at the same time, guide them not to get themselves involved in some silly things which will cut uh, their ambitions short. So use
Yes.
put in more hard work, and we'll be behind you. We'll support you whatever way you want to go. Yeah, but I see sometimes it took initiatives I didn't even know because before I realized it's here or it's there, and I don't chastise him for being there. I know he has something which he had planned for himself, and let him have his own way. Yeah, we can't have stereotypes. Yeah, the father
Yes,
is
sir.
called is called Sampson Kofi Adotey Jr. That means he must listen or take every instruction I give. If you feel that this one won't help me, yeah, there. Just let's go your way and let's see. Just don't go and mess up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think
Yes,
on
sir.
that note, there's a similarity here in a sense that his dad wanted him to become an accountant because he was good at math, right? And in my case, when I said I wanted to study law and I subsequently changed my mind, I remember him saying, "Well, you can always do law after your first degree," right? Which was the case. He didn't insist but he knew that I enjoyed debating. I was the, vice president for debates on campus. In secondary school, I was in a debate society. I wrote very good essays. I make very valid points, which were reference materials that our teachers in school would use for others, So that
Yeah.
in its sense, I also see a thread there. But he never, for me, insisted. There were things that he insisted that, and those things were, appropriate because when I think about it, I recognize the value it brought me in terms of opening my mind to the world and what is possible and complex thinking, which sometimes we don't derive that lesson until, you recognize later how complex the world is and you're like, oh, I'm grateful that I actually took this course because it helped me navigate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys actually pointed out something very, very powerful. The fact that, his dad, wanted him to be an accountant, but allowed him the freedom to be who he became. And then, it's full circle how it came back to you. And I'm sure it's the same level of influence you have on your kid as well. So, and this is why we're trying to cover stories like this, because we believe that that level of influence is also generational. Because imagine if he didn't have that kind of relationship with his dad, right? And then how you would have become a lawyer now. But I feel like you would have still made your way back here
Right.
because that's how life happens. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's focus on the work that you're doing in Ghana, right?
Yeah.
So, there's this line between living abroad and then coming back home and still making that same level of change and, committing to all of that. So how has that been for you? How often do you have to come home to keep this going? And when you're coming home to do work back home, do you have to involve your dad more? How exactly do things work out for you?
I think that even though I, left Ghana a few years ago, possibly close to a decade, maybe soon, I have never left. Like my my presence. I think my presence is less visible, but in
Hmm.
terms of what I do is still exist, right? So, throughout my career, all the jobs that I've had, in most instances have brought me back here to be able to work, except for the past 3 years where, I go to neighboring countries like Sierra Leone, like Nigeria, and I pretty much have covered, close to a lot of places on the continent in terms of work. But home has always been different. And so in my transition from my previous employer to my current phase, I happened to have met another friend who shared a similar idea with me, and together we formed the founding team for what is today known as the Africa Center for Technical Training. And at the time, we were focused on enabling young people, people, not necessarily people who are drop out from schools. You could be a college graduate or university graduate, but struggling to find a job,
Hmm.
and we wanted to create an alternative pathway for them. And so Penny and I, Penelope Brooke Thompson, who's now the president, or who is the president of ACTT, and I came together to shape this idea. And at the time, the idea was a baby, in our heads, which had been lingering for. I think Penny and I had this idea lingering in our heads for a very long time, and we hadn't necessarily made it actionable. But it had to take Penny's courage to get us to start, and so
Yeah.
that is how we started. And we the ultimate goal for me was that I, as much as I lived on a different continent, and I happened to find myself in a different space, I wanted to still have something that keeps me connected to Ghana. Because one time I was traveling through one of these airports, actually through Accra, and I was on my way to Sierra Leone or Liberia, and I met a gentleman who was like, "Oh, your name looks familiar. Are you Mr. Adotey's son?" I was like, where do you know him from? And he was like, "Oh, I know him from this." And it was the weirdest of place I ever thought I would know someone or see someone who knows my dad, because one, he was a security person, and I was like, my dad has never worked in a. He wasn't like a police. He was like the BNI, what like the FBI or whatever you want to call it of Ghana, and
Hmm.
they were profiling people. So when he profiled me, it's like, "What do you do? Where are you going?" I told him, and he was like, "Why don't you do the same in Ghana?" And I was like, "What makes you think I don't do the same in Ghana?" Because I wasn't trying to be arrogant, but the assumption that I was, going to do work elsewhere and I was traveling, transiting through Accra doesn't mean that I'm not doing something back home. So I've consulted on a
Yes.
number of different initiatives back home, actively pro bono in some cases, help shape some ideas, help shape different things. But the Africa Center for Technical Training was a key one for me because my mom, started as a tradesperson, went to vocational school, received training, and excelled at that. And for me, that was
Hmm.
a model and an example for what we can do if people like what people could do as an alternative pathway if they were struggling to build or find employment, and these careers are very relevant today. Actually, we have less reliable people in trade than we have in other places. And if
Yes.
we build a
Yes.
cohort of very professionally train people who would give top level service for top city, that might transform our communities and people would live a better life. And so Penny and I thought about this, and that's how ACTT came into being. And I'm happy to have played a very important role in helping raise the initial funding, which actually helped us. And in the process of actually piloting, when we were piloting, I had to raise some capital for the pilot, and my mom helped out, and she helped out by recommending people, because at the time the pilot was for experienced artisans who
Okay.
wanted leadership skills and expand their leadership training, and we wanted to train those folks. And so our mom was able to help us do that, and that's how we ended up being able to work together. And I still continue to support ACTT from afar, even as I do other things. And there are many other things I also dabble in, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're a good example of a Pan-African.
Okay.
Honestly, thank you for sharing that, Samson. So, but do you have any other, apart from, the consultancies that you're doing, is there any plan you have for Ghana in the future?
I think, I pretty much want to, like, I've never left. Like, I always tell my friends, everyone who knows me in the diaspora, and everyone who meets me either, on the streets of New York or like in DC or like any other place, they will tell you that this dude is always talking about going back home. He has a plan, he has like a timeline, he's working hard towards meeting that goal. And I don't want to make, like, Ghana for me is home, and it will forever remain home. And I want to be able to contribute to making this place livable as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, I'm looking forward to still contributing in diverse ways. In the past, I also, remotely helped support our artificial intelligence strategy, and some other things. But yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So is there anything you're going to be working on with your dad going
Well,
forward?
I've actually asked him to write a book, and that's my assignment for him. And we can maybe talk about in places where he wants me to fill in. Maybe we were driving and our engine, had a problem. Like one time when we were where we were somewhere, we had to use mosquito spray.
So that was maybe like,
That was been like, yeah, we were on our way from Tamale, and we had to use mosquitoes.
we had no accommodation.
Oh yeah, there's that story as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we had no accommodation where I had been there earlier. So I had reserved
Mhm.
a room. Then I went to Tamale to pick some, I think, an equipment. And one other guy, and being the machine.
Yeah.
When I came, he said, my room unfortunately cannot be given to me. Why? People have come to take their place. I think they were security men, the soldiers and other things, because of some confusion that was going on in the town. And therefore, we had to look elsewhere. There was no accommodation anywhere but than a dilapidated, how do you call it,
Yeah,
teachers
teachers hostel or
post. I think they were,
accommodation. Yeah.
yeah. And we got there.
Mhm.
The one who was in charge was not even available. But there were some 2 rooms. If you enter, you wouldn't want to stay there. But he said we should sleep in the vehicle. And I said, Junior, you are not serious. So we went to town, I bought some bed sheets,
Mosquito
mosquito
spray.
spray, and a coil.
Yeah.
So we came, sprayed the 2 rooms. My colleague was going to stay in another one. And then we made a bed ourselves. And then we were already hungry. So we had to go and look for some food to eat. Look for some water to bath somewhere. And then came to sleep, waiting for the next morning so we can go to work. And we stayed there for the
Yeah.
night. And it was like, wow, this,
Yeah.
this is not a place to live. I said, are people living here?
Yeah.
Once there are human
Mhm.
beings living here, we can also live here. There's blood flowing in them like it's flowing through us. we won't give the mosquito the
Mhm.
chance to infest them with malaria anyway, but they have to sleep.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
if I can paint the image of the place to you, right? So these are
Hmm.
dilapidated buildings. There was you know how the window didn't have a net. Okay,
Okay.
it had a net, but it was torn. So it was like an easy inlet for mosquitoes.
The liver brains were
The
breaking.
louver blades were
Yeah.
breaking. It was just like nobody would want to live there, but that's what we called home for a very long time. Because, and I was
Yeah.
okay sleeping in the car. After all, what's the worst that could happen? So long as I have a place I can bath, and so long as I have a place, a bathroom, a washroom, we could figure
Hmm.
it out. But I guess it wasn't sustainable. We probably would get tired of sleeping in the car because that's the same car we'd use to go to work every day, and it's just not going to be healthy. So we had to make do.
Yeah, but actually, I slept in vehicles before.
Yeah.
Where there are places you get to, there's nowhere to sleep. Sometimes we sleep on top of the vehicle, but here
Wow.
to find something,
Yeah, we could find
something
something.
to have a better place to sit down to. And we're free. The three of us cannot save the
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't know how we make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just
And
wanted
then
to
if
say,
Ghana is anything like Nigeria, okay. Sorry, please go ahead.
no. So what I was going to say is that I had, because of the head of state award that I'd gotten a few years back, and on I'd been camping and all of that. That experience was still with me, and I pretty much enjoyed it. And I stayed in very terrible places. And so I feel like that training was like the initial onboarding experience for this other experience. So at that point, that city boy life had left me. I was now probably like a village King Kong or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that if Ghana is anything like Nigeria and you're in a new environment, the mosquitoes get very excited
Yeah,
because
fresh blood, fresh
fresh blood. Yes. Yes. So
blood.
you just mentioned something about a head of state award. That's in Ghana or
Yeah. So
okay.
there's the international award, the Duke of Edinburgh International Award for Young People, and
Okay.
it's awarded in three tiers: bronze, silver, gold. And so I had received bronze and silver. I never completed the requirements for gold, but that's also another story for the future. But that was one of those, I actually won twice the bronze and, well, once each, the bronze and silver award. And I think I also got nominated for, um, there was this award program in Ghana where they were recognizing people in different fields, and I was part of the top 50 people,
Yeah,
like young change.
I think four.
Wow.
We're among the first five.
Yeah, I was up in the first five for my category,
Yeah.
which was science, technology, and math, and then like the list was like the top 50.
The top 50, he was I think number four. Yeah, yeah.
No, I think in the top five for my category, and the
Yes.
top 50 I was like 15 or something. I don't remember what the number.
So is it youth something something?
Yeah, some awards
Wow.
some time ago. None of us
Yeah.
actually remembers.
Okay,
That
but you
should
were still
tell you
living
how
back
much.
home.
Sorry.
Were you still living back home when you received the award?
Yes, I was still
Oh,
living here
okay.
and contributing. And then, so the thing is, even though I left, in
Hmm.
2017, my work pretty much has always been focused on Africa. And even till today, including what I do, is focused on Africa and Southeast Asia. So often I call myself someone who's focused on the global majority, instead of the global minority, because I don't think we're a minority. We're more than the others.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to be able to influence places, communities, peoples, and enable them to be able to co-develop their own solutions to the problems that are contextual to their environment. And that has always been my commitment.